grew up as a little kid going down to Galveston, which also was wiped out in 1900. There was a 1900 storm that killed 6,000 to 8,000 people. They couldn't really tell because there were so many people that were just washed out or buried that they never knew about. And there was no way to know who was there and who wasn't there. But it was the biggest American natural disaster yet. So it was a pretty big deal. And as a kid, I went down there, and so you always had like pirate stories, and you know, Lafitte and all those guys were down there, and then you had the this horrific ocean that we'd go fishing in. And when you're a little kid fishing in a lake, you know, I mean, the worst thing that can happen is you catch a really, really big catfish or something. The most scary thing that can happen. But in the ocean, you know, I remember going down there fishing, just a little kid, hanging the pole under my arm, over the pole like this on the railing of the party boat we were on, you know, with a bunch of other people. And I'm getting this deal going like this. It's kind of lifting me up off the ground, and I reel the thing up, and I look over, and it's this huge hammerhead shark. And I'm like, Dad. I think he was probably having a beer. Dad, and this one of the helpers on the boat, this deckhand, comes over, and I see this hand come over the top of me like this with a pistol and shoot the shark about 5 times. My shark, I'm like going, look, boom, 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 boom. All right, now we can handle it. You know, so for a kid from Dallas, those kind of trips for me were always much more interesting and exciting and real than Dallas. I mean, Dallas, I lived there all my life. My parents lived there. My wife's parents lived there. You know, it's a great place, but it's not so rich in that. Or maybe I just don't see it because I live there. You know, sometimes when you live someplace, you could be living with a bunch of, you know, Monets, and you don't even get art. You know, you just, oh yeah, that's that stuff my parents always had on the wall, those lily paintings. Okay. And those Van Goghs and all that, some goofy looking pictures of guys. You know, you might just blow past stuff because you're around it. But for me, going out, early on as a kid, going out to see things was always more interesting than my own backyard. So I went down, and that painting was painted in Galveston in '89. So about 20 years ago. And it's kind of what I do. It's like Cezanne painted real people, guys playing cards, bathers, I guess. You know, some of this stuff's sort of been made up for art, but I don't know any place I've ever been where there's a lot of bathers all hanging out in triangular compositions. But you know, it's like what I felt like I was doing was a similar thing to Van Gogh and Pizarro and, you know, people all through art history that weren't religious painters. Painting working people, painting people doing their job, real people doing their job. So when you paint, you know, Madonna, I don't know if that's so real to everybody. You know, I mean, I don't have, my next door neighbor's not so much like her. Lady Gaga next door, you know. So it's, I mean, not that would be bad, I'm just saying, I don't see that a lot. So these are more real folks that I painted, and that's what that guy is. But the way that it's painted, because I love art history, there's a Masaccio kind of, Argiato kind of a bold, huge, heroic figure to that. So that a lot of the paintings are based in art history, although it wasn't something that you'd be thinking of. I'm going to try to copy this particular painting in my own way. It was mainly just, all this goes into the computer, goes into your head, and fishing stuff, and seeing people. And when I go out, by the way, this big guy right here, when I don't know him, and I go over and I see him fishing or something down there, I'm not going to go, hey, can I draw you? Because he'll probably kick my ass.
That's pretty nice.
So what I do is I just go over, and we're talking about fishing and stuff, and I'm kind of looking at how all that's built and stuff, and being around him. And so when I paint a portrait, it may not look exactly like if I had him there working from a him. So they're not so much, they should look like him, but not as much as he probably would like. You know, and if I painted your girlfriend, she would really not be happy. You know, women, and that's one reason I've not painted a lot of women, is I felt more comfortable painting guys because I'm one and I kind of don't care what they think. But I think of women as being beautiful and kind of, you know, and I know how y'all are. I can't even take a picture of y'all, you lie. I go out and take a picture of my wife somewhere and it's like, take it up. You know, now at least you can see them, you know. And I go, nah. Smile a little bit, okay. That's it. And I keep doing it over and over and over. I'm like going click, 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 more stuff, click, click. And then finally we have something in there, you know. But it's like, even if photographs don't get it, you realize how difficult it would be for a painting. So early on I decided it's not really, for me, when you paint like this, it's not really about that. It's not about trying to make a real great likeness or trying to make a real perfect boat or a perfect moon. It's about something different. It's about form and shape. It's about all the art stuff. It's about light and dark. You know, it's about the suggestion of what that looks like more than real moonlight. There's guys that can paint real moonlight. And I've always, when I was young, I still enjoy those paintings of those guys, but I just knew it wasn't my thing. And so I work within formal issues in painting that I've always seen and do the best I can with it. Anyway, the way these start, usually in everything I've done, is by going back to my car after I meet this dude, we hang out for a little bit. I go back to the car and I do this drawing of what I remember from his experience with this guy. And I draw him, and I might write down quotes he said, you know, because, you know, I'll get a quote du jour from people now when I'm fishing or doing stuff. They're just them. It's like, I don't know if I have my right hand printing here. Somebody said, that printing is so messed up. It's like a 7th grader did it. And I went, all right, I can't disagree with that, you know. But they said that it looked so much like this, you know. And it's like when you see a painting that's all wild and then you see a perfect little signature on there in script, it kind of doesn't go with the work. So I guess the point is that when you just do what you can that you have strength in, and hope well, that's all you can do. And you don't develop a style, by the way. It's not like something you can learn, or I don't even think it's developed. I think this is what you've been given. Some people are more facile. Some people have choices. You know, it's almost a curse because you can do so many different things. You can do it this way, or you can do it that way, or I can play guitar, I can sing, I can, you know. I think this is kind of it. Something happens with this, and I'm kind of, I don't know. This is kind of the only thing I know. So what happens, these drawings happen like this, and these will all be little compositional studies of what a particular painting can look like. And so again, I'm really working with what I'm seeing, but trying to do something that would work as a painting. Because really that's what I'm doing again, is a painting, not a reconstruction of somebody or making them appear before your eyes. It's just a painting. So all of these are little studies that are made about this picture actually ends up being used in the guy in the canoe over there. So that's where that little piece of something would be taken from that. So no matter how crude it is or how simple it is, you can work from that once you get over there and start painting. As we go around the corner, and then actually what would happen from this would be bigger drawings like this one, and then the big studies, the big portraits at the other end would be bigger studies, and just something that's easy and movable. This is so movable. Charcoal and all that stuff is extremely movable, and if you don't like it, when this happens quite a bit, you just tear it and throw it away. You get going on it, and it's out of control, boom, you throw it away, and you do something else. Rather than slavishly trying to save it, no. There's an immediacy to this stuff that you can, on a painting, you can scratch it all off and put it back on in a different configuration, but with drawing, once you get something that black on there, it's not going to be white anymore. And so if you've seen those Matisse drawings where they're just woolly with lines, It's where he's done drawing and drawing and drawing, trying to figure out exactly where he wanted it. Once he got it like that, then he could go on to the painting and know where he was going. He'd gone through all that somewhere else, so that that painting could be very minimal and clean if he wanted it to be. All right, let's go around the corner here and I'll show you these where things went from here. I used to tell students when I taught that they shouldn't ever work from TV. You know, like, under no circumstances do I want pictures of Vanna White while you're watching
Wheel of Fortune.
Wheel of Fortune, right. I mean, that is not, go out in life. I'm trying to get them to, I think teachers can't help from teach from their experiences. I don't know particularly what Mondrian's experiences are. But you know yours, so my teacher told me to go out, and he was a great teacher. Listen to this. I was in his class and I was doing a live drawing. The model's set up here, and here you guys are all like me drawing her. We're all drawing. So I have colored pencils and stuff, not Conti and stubs and all that, doing drawing. I just have colored pencils and I'm drawing her and I get that kind of done. And then I look over and I see you and I'm drawing you, drawing her, and then I'm drawing you, drawing her. And then I'm drawing this person over here kind of like not paying attention at all, got that. And I'm doing these various drawings and my teacher came over and everybody else is doing these beautiful bang-like drawings, you know, Degas-looking drawings of her. And I'm looking around going, ow. Okay, whatever. And this guy says, Bates, come here, out in the hall. I'm like, probably not good. Although I've heard this my whole scholastic career, so not totally surprised. I get out there, I found out, you know, in my day they didn't have dyslexia. You know, you just load. So I think there was a little bit of that, transposing numbers, reading takes me forever. It's like seeing it, hearing it. Audio books are awesome for me because reading it, people say, the movie's so not as good as the book. I'm like, what? Because it's visual, it's something visual, you know. So anyway, I go out in the hall with this guy and he says, I'm going to put you on a bus. And I want you to get in the bus with your stuff and draw everything you see outside the bus, inside the bus, whatever you want, because that's what you're doing. You're just drawing stuff around you. You go do that. It goes downtown, it goes everywhere, and it ends up at the end of the day here. See ya. And I'm like, all right. So I get in the bus, I'm doing all that stuff, and I get back with all these notebooks full of drawings, partially done figures and faces where they were only on for a little bit of time, people standing there holding on, and people, you know, people sitting in their chair looking at another guy that's standing over them, you know, all that kind of drama that goes on in a subway or a bus or whatever. And then people downtown, and he says, that's your deal. This is not your deal. And so what he did is he took the education and aimed it at some needs he saw for this particular student. And I don't know if he did that for everybody, but it was really, really helpful for me. So, not drawing from TV, all of a sudden Katrina happens. I've been going to New Orleans at this point for probably 25, 30 years. For a lot of the same reasons that everybody starts going there, either the food or the Mardi Gras or the, you know, Jazz Fest or, you know, whatever. And then Arthur Roger, as a gallery that's down there, started showing my work in '85. So it was business at some degree, and then friendships. You have all these friendships and other artists in the gallery, and it's a real different kind of group than Dallas again. So rather than hanging out with the artists in Dallas so much, I really just never have done that. Been a member of a group. I don't know. I was the only kid, maybe that's it. But you just don't. You know, who said that line about I wouldn't want to be a member of any
Woody Allen.
any club that would have me as a member? You know, that kind of thing. So it's not on purpose. It just seems to go that way. So I went down there, and here's all these people, and they talk differently, and there's no such thing as cholesterol in their mind. You know, drinking a little too much cholesterol is like, we're going to get killed in a hurricane. It doesn't even matter. You know, it's like, so that whole attitude, quite a bit different than Dallas again. Very conservative in Dallas. So anyway, that whole thing, I'm down there with all these friends and all, everything, 25 years of that goes by, and then you watch TV, some storms coming in, which happens all the time. I've gone down to the coast for hurricanes, just wanted to be in one, just to see what that was like. This was before Katrina. You know, hurricanes at that point were excuses for parties, really, a lot of the time. You know, they were always coming towards you, and at the last minute would turn off. So everybody's drinking hurricanes and having a good time and like mocking nature. And one reason everybody stayed is because they figured here it's going to come in and it goes over here. It almost always at the last second moves somewhere else. So I'm watching it on TV and I'm calling up everybody, what's going on, are you going to leave, or are you going to stay, what's happening with all your art, where's your studio, you know, is that flooded before? And at the last minute it got very serious. I mean, it took a long time for the people that were running things down there to say, we need to go. It was almost kind of too late at that point. As you remember, all those buses were out there just underwater. So those could have been utilized to take people out. There was a lot of stuff that could have happened, both locally and you know, nationally. But the deal is, I'm watching all this, trying to figure out how this happens, and then the storm comes in, and then it's all passed. Everything seemed like it was going to be okay, and then the levees start breaking, and all the flooding happens. And everybody that I know is gone. You can't get anybody on the phone. All the cell lines are down, and you're just watching CNN and seeing what's going on with that. And at that point, I knew two things. I knew this was a huge historical event when I saw that possibly 1 million people were going to be displaced along the coast. And I saw we were starting to see destruction because people were starting to get back down there to take pictures. And I saw the Superdome and all that. And that here were people that were jammed in this building where they were told to go. And they couldn't even get water for 5 days, let alone bathrooms or help or food or anything like that. So I knew that all those people were getting ready to, they were trying to get buses, and they were going to take all these people indiscriminately somewhere else. I don't know where you're going to go, but it's going to go somewhere that has a bathroom and water. And so everybody's like, whatever, I'm just done. I can't take it. I saw what was left of my house. It looked like that. And I'm here and I don't have anything. I saw people coming out of that water with their entire life in a garbage bag. I mean, I don't think anything you could possibly see would be more profound and more moving and more have to do with how bad things can get than that. Other ones came out just with their pet. They didn't leave, they took nothing out. They just carried their pet out. So I mean, it was a huge event, and I knew that it couldn't go on like this forever, and everybody was going to be evacuated out, and it was going to be very different. So it was a timeline on this. And I think history painting is one of those things that it's like portraits, still life, landscape. It's all things that a traditional artist would kind of try to do. You know, I mean, Picasso did all those things. Every artist, no matter how wild in the recent past, has done those genres, and history painting is one of them. I felt bad that I wasn't there. You know, that like I told my students, you should be there, but you couldn't get in, you couldn't do anything. You couldn't go down there until I think end of December. So I did at that point. I went probably 6 or 7 times that year, but I just started drawing the drawings like that, and then making drawings like this of various people and stories that I was seeing. And then the little paintings, the little portraits like this, were all just really quick studies of faces that I was seeing, and the stories, could play them over and over on my player. You know, I taped it so I could see the stories over and over. And the stories were so powerful, and the faces that they were coming out of were so etched, so carved with those stories, that even a not a great portraiture artist could do something that would read as what you're seeing there. And I didn't really know what these were for, where they were going to go or anything. I just knew that there was something that I should do because I love that city and those people. And the people that were all getting washed out of there was the soul of that city. They were the ones that made it what it was. You know, it's the people that are the character of it. That's the character of a city. And so anyway, when I got those little portraits done, I thought they're not big enough to tell the story here. This is like a little portrait like this, trying to get all that in there. So then they got a little bigger, and then finally they got to that scale. And finally it seemed like it was starting to get to a proportion that would relate to the magnitude of the story. And so I think if you wonder about scale, you know, contemporary art has a whole lot of scale to it. And believe me, I'm aware of that. And I came up through the abstract expressionist period. I mean, that's what we looked at when I was young. And that's in there. So there's all that kind of stuff, that kind of scale, that kind of painting is in those paintings. It's just that at this point it's trying to aim it at this particular catastrophe. So this particular painting, you know, the stories that you were hearing were so amazingly, and I remember there was one, well, there's several, and none of them are good, but all of them are so wild you couldn't make them up. But this particular guy was in his house, and he got up to use the bathroom, I think, and the water in his house when he stepped off his bed was like up to the edge of the bed. And he'd been in flooded water before. I mean, it's 20 feet below sea level where they live. A lot of New Orleans is in this bowl, and the river and the levees are like an aqueduct of water that keep it out and pumps. So, you know, when stuff floods, a rain, I don't know if you've been there during a big rain, but you get up ankle deep in water. Your shoes, whatever shoes you have, are getting ready to be different, you know. So, and you just get used to it. You know, you see people on their way back to work after having lunch with their shoes, you know, have their high heels off, wading across water back to the place, put them back on, you know. So, everybody knows about that. But when those levees broke, it pushed water up into these, the wind pushed water in like a wave, like that, into these canals, and it just blew the canals out. And when that happened, this guy was probably far enough away that it didn't just, if you imagine a little wooden house, a group of little wooden houses that were very old, made out of cypress, so they were like boxes, cypress wooden boxes. And then and they're teamed up on like bricks, piles of bricks. So there was a little buffer from the water, but when the levee broke, this wave comes in and picks them up, and those houses are now all of a sudden on a surf, on a wave. It just picks them up like a little wooden, like a bar of soap. And here they go, and some of them hit telephone poles or another brick house or whatever, and then they start dissolving and whirling around. So when you went in there right after the storm, it was like a kid had just been playing with the houses in that area. They were set around in no particular order. Streets were cluttered with houses, not debris, but a whole house sitting in the street. So this guy was sitting in there and he noticed water in his house, so he gets up and he's like, okay, I'll get up on top of the bed, and it's dark, no phones, no electricity, and he's trying to figure out what's going on. The water comes up on the bed, so he gets up on the countertop, and he gets on top of the refrigerator. It's still coming up really fast, like in 30 minutes, 20, 30 minutes. And finally, he's thinking he's going to have to beat his way through the ceiling, so he gets through that, and then he gets through the roof. And he, you know, I mean, he's just doing this with whatever he can. He gets through the roof and all this stuff, and gets to the top. All you hear is rushing water and people off in the distance in his same predicament. And then he hears this sound, and there's some canoe that's washed up against his house. I mean, he goes over there thinking it's another person that needs help, and he goes over and there's this boat. And so he takes the boat, dumps it out, and takes a board and starts paddling his way out of there. And as he goes out, he's got his friends in the neighborhood all saying, hey, come get me, you know. And he can't come get him because it's such a small boat, it really won't hold him, and they're going to swamp it, and then there'll be no boat for anybody. So he goes through it and he says, I'll get you help. It's kind of a biblical-esque kind of story. I mean, it's like this whole huge deal. And it's impossible, I think, to get that in anything probably but a Spielberg movie, really. And that's why I always think painting, it does stuff that you can't get in a photograph, but it also doesn't do as much as you can get in a movie or something. If you're trying to tell a story, it's just kind of always going to be a little bit lacking. So you just do the best you can with it. And in that, you're trying to, I mean, I've painted paintings before that were that same almost composition. Stephen, did y'all see that PowerPoint Stephen put together? Unbelievable. I really thought that was, I watched that thing and was like, I need this guy to be doing that about everything, every piece of work I do. I mean, I learned stuff in that from his PowerPoint. But there was other compositions that had been painted of people in canoes. They were just on their way out to check some crab pots. You know, they were not in this particular situation. So they were all things that I'd painted before, people that I'd painted before. You might not know the guys' names, but you knew them before the storm. You'd seen them down there, and then after the storm, some of them came back, some of them didn't. Like I said, these kind of were studies that were done of various people. You know, again, I felt bad that I wasn't there, but then I started remembering, you know, again, Guernica. Picasso had painted Guernica, and he wasn't there for that. And Manet had painted the firing squad, the Maximilian firing squad, and he wasn't there for that. And the Wrath of Medusa, you know, they were all statements that were painted by artists for reasons that they couldn't be there, but they felt like it was an important story. And some of the things when you're painting them have that same kind of carving in them that you might have seen in a Picasso Weeping Woman, or you might have seen in something else. But it was in this face. I mean, what we have in common is not so much a feel of drawing or art history, but that subject. That you've both seen people whose faces were carved with grief or strength. And it's stuff that's not popular in the art world. Contemporary art is so, at least from the minimalist period that I came from in the 70s when I first started, this kind of thing is like not a popular deal. But you don't really worry about things like whether you should be painting this, or whether it's popular, or whether any kind of practical stuff. You just think about what you think you need to do. And you know, before this group of paintings, there were some really beautiful paintings of birds and trees from the swamps that I had been in. It was beautiful out there, so I'm painting pictures of it. And I'm thinking you know, I mean, I love doing that. It's not a hardship for me to do that. It's like these fall leaves you have here right now in Knoxville. I mean, it's kind of tough to beat that. But when you could be painting that and you elect to paint this, sometimes your gallery people might be going, what are you doing? You know, because that's their business. And all that kind of stuff is just, you know, I mean, I've never really paid a great deal of attention to that. They do good at their business and you do good at whatever you do. But what I'm saying is you have choices that you make of what you paint and what the consequences of that are. And I didn't know what they would be in this case, but that's why I'm so glad to see this grouping of paintings now. And you feel like you might have done right.